Welcome to the Heartbreak Chronicles, where every story is a raw reflection of life. Hit that subscribe button to stay tuned, give us a like to show your support, and share this episode with your friends. Don't forget to leave a comment and let us know what you think. Now, let's dive into today's story. My name is Mark and I am an architect. I stood in the foyer of the opera house that evening, my eyes sweeping unobtrusively over the dining room. Suddenly I saw a familiar figure. It was Lisa, my ex-wife, sitting with a slightly overweight, middle-aged man. He looks like he should have been in good shape at one time, but now he seems to have indulged a bit in the hedonistic pleasures of life. Lisa looked happy, and the man oozed wealth all over him. At the sight of this scene, memories from 3 years ago came flooding back like a tidal wave. At the time, we were still married and I witnessed her betrayal. It was a normal weekday, and I was supposed to meet a client in Albany, where I planned to spend the night. But plans change when the customer suddenly calls to say his car has been in an accident. The meeting had to be canceled even though the person was fine. I had to turn around and go home, with a surprise for Lisa in mind. However, the real surprise waiting for me was something else. When I opened the door to my home, four sets of unfamiliar clothing strewn about the living room immediately caught my attention. Then I heard Lisa's voice, and it wasn't a cry for help, it was a passionate moan. My heart instantly sank to the bottom. I quietly walked upstairs to a scene I'll never forget. Lisa and three strange men in our bedroom. One of them, I recognized as her boss, David. I felt a wave of revulsion as I watched them talk nasty to Lisa. I backed out quietly and rushed into the den to pull out the video camera. My intent was to take evidence, not make some private video. I only recorded for about 10 minutes before I couldn't take it anymore and had a complete emotional breakdown. I went back downstairs and tried to organize my thoughts. I took the gun out of the safe, and while I'm not a violent person, at the moment I felt the need to protect myself. I went into the living room, took their car keys and wallet, and went out and deflated their tires. Back inside, an idea struck me. I hid quietly behind the stairs and called Lisa. The phone rang several times before it picked up, and I heard Lisa gasp, "Hey Mark, how's Albany?" Holding back my anger, I pretended to be concerned and asked, "You sound tired. Is everything okay?" Lisa hastily explains that she just ran upstairs to answer the phone. I told her the client had canceled the meeting and I was on my way home. Upon hearing the news, Lisa visibly panicked and hurriedly said she needed to get ready. After hanging up, I watched as four naked men rushed down the stairs in a panic, hastily dressing. Lisa put on her shoes and coat, hoping to leave before the guys did. If she hadn't been so flustered, she might have noticed my car parked down the street. The very moment Lisa stepped out onto the porch, I slammed the front door hard and locked it. The look on her face when she turned and saw my face is one I'll never forget. She tried to speak to me through the side window, a plea in her tone, but it was too late. The men went back to the porch and started knocking on the door for their stuff. I immediately called 911 to report a break-in. The police arrived soon after. I told them that Lisa was being abused by those men and demanded that they be arrested. This angered the guys, and they started yelling that Lisa had invited them. Everyone looked at Lisa, waiting for her to say something. She avoided everyone's gaze and admitted in a low voice that she had invited these people, that she had not been abused, and that everything had been voluntary. The police suggested we go to counseling, but I knew the marriage was beyond repair. That night, I started gathering evidence. I found a DVD Lisa had hidden under a drawer that documented her infidelities with Tony, her personal yoga instructor, her boss David, and David's partner John. Early the next morning, I contacted my good friend and attorney, Eric. I gave him all the evidence and decided that not only would I get a divorce, but I would make everyone involved in this pay. Looking at Lisa and her new love in front of me, I can't help but feel a lot of emotions. 3 years later, that experience still seems like yesterday. I gathered my thoughts and decided to go up and say hello to see if she remembered the bad times. The next morning, Eric and I sat in his office and discussed the next plan of action. Eric listened carefully to my account and then pondered for a moment. "Mark, we have enough evidence in hand to put pressure on David," Eric said, "but we need to proceed with caution. I suggest we preemptively confront David directly." I nodded. "You're right, Eric. We should move quickly." Eric picked up the phone and dialed David's number directly. Mr. Davis, I'm Eric Worth, Mark Thompson's attorney. We need to meet immediately to discuss some important matters. 2 hours later, we were sitting in David's plush office. Lisa was there, sitting next to David, looking nervous. Eric got right to the point. Mr. Davis, we have some evidence of inappropriate behavior by you and Mrs. Thompson. With that, Eric turned on the portable DVD player and turned the screen toward David. The footage clearly shows David and Lisa's intimate behavior in the company conference room. David's face turned instantly pale. What's going on here? David stammered. Eric continued, Mr. Davis, we have more evidence, including videos of your partner John and other employees involved. I think you understand the repercussions of these videos once they become public. David's expression went from shock to panic. He glanced at Lisa and then turned to us. What do you guys want? Eric smiled a winning smile. First, Lisa keeps her job without any repercussions. Secondly, we would like a reasonable amount of compensation. If you agree, we can give you an answer within 5 working days. Otherwise, we will take legal action within 2 months. David was silent for a moment, then nodded helplessly. I'll need to talk to my lawyer about the exact amount. Just then Lisa sprang to her feet. You can't do this. This is blackmail. Eric looked at her coldly. Mrs. Thompson, I suggest you calm down. Considering your role in this matter, you should be thankful that we didn't take more drastic measures. Lisa deflated instantly and sat back in her chair. As we left David's office, I noticed Lisa trying to sneak up on us. Eric noticed too, and he turned to warn Lisa sternly, Mrs. Thompson, I suggest you stay in the office. It's safest for you to go back now. A flash of fear flashed in Lisa's eyes, and she quickly retreated back to her office. In the elevator, Eric turned to me. Next, we're going to visit George, the owner of the private yoga instructor. I nodded. Okay, let's continue. Half an hour later, we arrived at George's yoga studio. George is a lean, middle-aged man who looks alert. Mr. Riel, Eric began, we have some evidence of inappropriate behavior by your yoga instructor, Tony. George frowned. What misbehavior? Eric pulled out the DVD player again and played the video of Tony and Lisa in the locker room of the yoga studio. George's face became increasingly ugly. It's private, George tried to argue. We don't interfere in the private lives of adults. Eric sneered. Mr. Riel, you should know that it is illegal to install cameras in the locker room. Not to mention the fact that your coach used his job to have inappropriate relationships with members. If this matter becomes public, how much trouble will your club face? George was silent, his expression showing that he was weighing the pros and cons. Eric continued the pressure. We want a fair settlement and you need to fire Tony. If you agree, we can settle this matter privately. Otherwise, we don't mind letting the courts be the judge. George took a deep breath. Give me a day to think about it. I will give you an answer. After leaving the yoga studio, Eric patted me on the shoulder. Good job, Mark. We've got the initiative. We'll wait for their reaction next. I nodded, though I still felt a pang of bitterness inside. This journey of revenge has only just begun, but I'm already starting to feel tired. However, I knew I had to keep going, not only for myself, but for all those who might be the next victims. Eric, I said suddenly, do you think this is really worth it? Eric looked at me, his eyes firm. Mark, sometimes justice needs to be fought for ourselves. You didn't do anything wrong. They betrayed your trust. Remember, we're not only seeking justice for you, we're also stopping them from continuing to hurt others. His words gave me renewed strength. Yeah, I guess it's not just for me. I took a deep breath and prepared for what was to come. The road to revenge may be long and hard, but I have no choice. Over the next few days, things began to move quickly. David obviously realized the seriousness of the situation, and his attorney contacted Eric with a settlement offer. Mark, Eric told me excitedly, David has offered $2.7 million in damages. That's more than we expected. I was a little surprised. Really? He compromised so quickly? Eric nodded. Apparently, he cares a lot about his reputation and career. However, there is one condition. He wants to keep Lisa's job. I laughed bitterly. Let him keep Lisa. I don't care anymore. Just as we were discussing David's offer, Mary, Eric's secretary, knocked on the door. "Eric, Mr. Jeff Davis is on the line and says it's urgent." Jeff was David's partner and one of the people involved in the party. Eric turned on the speakerphone. "Mr. Worth," Jeff's voice sounded nervous. "I just got fired from the company. David took all my tapes and then fired me. What am I going to do?" Eric gave me a look, and we both realized what was happening. David is cleaning house and trying to save his reputation and his company. "Jeff," Eric said calmly, "I suggest you get a good lawyer. It seems you've become a pariah in this game." After hanging up, Eric turned to me. "It seems David is more savvy than we thought. He's trying to cut off all connections that might threaten him." I nodded. "So what do we do next?" Eric thought for a moment. "We have two more targets. The other two people who were at your house that night. They're important clients of David's, right?" I confirmed, "Yes, they're all executives at big companies." "Good," Eric said. "We can capitalize on that. They certainly don't want this kind of scandal to affect their corporate and personal reputations." Eric's prediction was spot on. When we contacted those two executives, they acted unusually nervous. Upon learning of the evidence in our possession, each offered $1 million in hush money. "They're more afraid of things than I thought," I said to Eric. Eric laughed. "The one thing rich people are afraid of is scandal, but this is good for us." However, George's attitude is surprising. He refused our request and insisted on a lawsuit. "He thinks he can win," Eric said, shaking his head. "Well, let the court decide then." The lawsuit went on for months. In court, George blanched when the videos of those sneak peeks in the locker room were presented as evidence. The judge strongly condemned the behavior and ultimately awarded George $3 million in damages and ordered him to sell the yoga studio. "It was a hard lesson," Eric commented, "that he could have settled privately." As the case proceeds, the yoga studio loses members quickly and George's business is nearly destroyed. Watching him lose his mind in the courtroom left me with mixed feelings. I only saw Lisa in court twice during the entire process. I couldn't help but call her a slut every time, which brought tears to her eyes. I can't help but wonder why she's crying now when she didn't care when she betrayed me in the first place. Eventually, as per the divorce settlement, I gave Lisa a house and a car, just as she had always wanted. We don't have kids, which makes the whole process a lot easier. When the dust settled, I realized I had more money than ever before. But it didn't bring the satisfaction I was expecting. The painful experiences of that year still haunt me and linger. Sitting alone on the balcony of my new apartment one night, I looked out over the city lights and began to reflect on the experience. I'm reminded of Eric's words, "Mark, sometimes justice requires us to fight for it ourselves." Yes, I did get justice, but at what cost? I lost the woman I once loved, even though she betrayed me. I got back at those who hurt me, but it didn't heal the wounds inside me. I began to wonder if I had a part to play in this marriage. Am I ignoring Lisa's needs? Am I so focused on work that I'm neglecting our relationship? There are no easy answers to these questions. But I knew that if I was going to truly move on from this experience, I needed to confront these issues, not just wallow in the thrill of revenge. I decided to change. I started working out to stay in shape. I cut my hair and shaved off my beard. I had knee surgery and was finally able to start playing baseball again. I bought better suits and tried to look my best in public. I think maybe that's growing up. Through painful experiences, I have learned to know myself better and to value those around me. Nonetheless, whenever I think of that past, my heart still flutters with bitterness. I know that this feeling will probably stay with me for a long time, but I also realize that life goes on and I have to move on. And so, 3 years passed. Until that night, when a chance encounter at the opera house pulled me back in time. Looking at Lisa and her new boyfriend, I decided to go up and say hello to see how fate would arrange this final encounter. Just as I was about to leave the opera house, I worked up the courage to walk over to Lisa and her new boyfriend. The look on Lisa's face went from surprise to panic when she saw me. Her new boyfriend seemed to notice something unusual and looked at me warily. "Hello, Lisa," I said calmly. "It's been a long time." Lisa nodded stiffly. "Mark, why are you here?" I smiled. "Came to see the opera and coincidentally ran into you guys. You look well." Lisa's new boyfriend interjected, "Hi, I'm Peter, Lisa's fiancé." I feigned surprise. "Oh, congratulations. Lisa, it looks like you finally found the man of your dreams." Lisa's face turned pale. "Mark, please don't." I turned to Peter. "There's something I want to say to you alone. Is that okay?" Peter was a little hesitant, but nodded in agreement. We stepped aside, leaving Lisa watching us anxiously. "Peter," I spoke up, "I used to stand where you are now. I don't want to see anyone else go through what I went through." Peter frowned. "What do you mean?" I took a deep breath. I'm guessing Lisa described me as a terrible husband. Maybe even said I was violent or cheated on her. The look on Peter's face told me I'd guessed right. "Look, I'm not here to save my reputation, but I have 3 questions for you." Peter nods for me to continue. "First, is Sarah still hosting those Avon parties at her house on Tuesdays and Thursdays?" Peter looked at me confused. "No, Lisa helps out at Sarah's on Mondays and Wednesdays." I nodded. "Okay." Second question, does Lisa still play tennis on Saturdays? "No, she plays tennis on Sundays." Peter replied, looking increasingly uneasy. "One last question," I said. "Have you checked under the bottom drawer of your living room dresser?" Peter's face changed. "Why are you checking there?" I pulled a folded piece of paper out of my wallet. "This is an email Lisa wrote to Sarah 3 years ago. I found it on her computer at the time after I found out she was cheating. I thought you should see it." Peter hesitated for a moment, but took the piece of paper. He read slowly, his face growing hard. I don't understand," he muttered. "Peter, Lisa is a regular person. Her habits are hard to change. I think you understand now why I asked those questions." Peter was silent for a long time, then looked up at me. "Thank you for telling me this. I need to go confirm something." After saying that, he walked quickly towards Lisa, whispered a few words to her, and then hurriedly left the restaurant. Lisa looks completely stunned. I walked back to Lisa, who had fear and anger in her eyes. "What did you say to him?" she questioned. I replied calmly, "Just something you should have told him a long time ago." Lisa's tears began to well up. "Why did you do this? You ruined my life." I looked at her deeply. "No, Lisa, you're the one who ruined your life. I just let the truth come out." I turn around and get ready to leave, but then stop. "By the way, I'm still going to call you by that name, because that's the real you." Lisa's tears flowed harder, and the entire restaurant turned to look at us. I felt some guilt, but more relief. Walking out of the opera house, it was late at night. I took a deep breath and felt the weight on my chest seem lighter. For the past 3 years, I've pondered whether I should tell Lisa's new partner the truth. Tonight, I finally made my choice. I don't know if Peter will find anything in the house or how his relationship with Lisa will develop, but I know that I did my part. If Peter really loves Lisa, maybe they can get over it. And if he can't, then at least he won't be betrayed without his knowledge, like I was. When I got home, I sat on my balcony and looked out over the city at night. It's been 3 years of trying to rebuild my life. I've focused on my career and achieved quite a bit. I started working out and changed my appearance. I've even tried dating, though I haven't met the right person yet. But it wasn't until tonight that I really felt like I let go of the past. Telling Peter the truth is not only responsible for him, but also a relief for myself. I am no longer the husband in the dark, no longer the resentful victim. I am now a person who has experienced betrayal but still chooses to be honest. I remembered the conversation in Eric's office the other day. At that time, I asked him if it was worth it. Now I see that it's not just about revenge or justice. It's about facing the truth, no matter how painful. It's about choosing to be a decent human being even after experiencing betrayal. I grabbed my phone and sent Eric a text. "Thanks for the advice in the first place. I think I finally understand what justice really means." Eric quickly replied, "Glad to hear that. Remember, Mark, true victory is not about defeating others, it's about defeating your own dark side." I smiled, feeling much lighter inside. Yes, I have finally conquered my dark side. Instead of being plagued by hatred and resentment, I chose to be real and honest. Lying on my bed, I think back on this 3-year journey, from initial pain and anger, to revenge and triumph, to peace and relief. It's been a difficult journey, but it's shaped me into the person I am now. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that I will be able to face whatever comes my way with more maturity and openness. Because I've experienced the worst of betrayal and still chose to be a better person. Closing my eyes, I felt a peace I hadn't felt in a long time. Tomorrow will be a new day, and I, for one, am ready for whatever life throws at me. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a story to share about your own or someone else's experience, please feel free to contact me. Take care.